Welcome to Real Voices of Recovery. I'm your host, Justin. The idea of this podcast got started because I believe that we all have a story that needs to be shared with each other to bring light and hope into our lives, and that recovery is possible. And it takes a tribe of community of others, of like-minded people to make that possible. So welcome to Real Voices of Recovery. Welcome to episode 3 of Real Voices Recovery. I'm Justin, your host, and today I'm here with John and Stephanie. And John's come in to kind of share his story of his own journey of recovery. And with that, John, I'm going to turn it over to you. So what was it like growing up? Are you from this area?
Yes, I am from the Lehigh Valley. Grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, in a nice house in the suburbs, and had a really normal childhood, a lot of happy memories. So it really wasn't until I turned 16 years old and reached ninth grade, things started kind of taking a turn in the opposite direction of life. Really, I didn't start using opiates actually until I was 24 years old. When I was 16 years old, it was the first time I got caught smoking a joint with a couple of my friends. It was taken a little bit more seriously than it probably should have, and I want to preface that by saying, my parents kind of went with what they knew back then, which is like, do the tough love thing. And so when I was 16, they ended up sending me to rehab. I ended up going to a place, it was actually in Quakertown, I think it was called the Renewal Center. I ended up doing this, it was like a relapse prevention plan. And I spent a lot of time on it. And I really actually came to a point in my own mind where I was like, you know what? I don't need weed anymore. Like, I don't even need that. I just want to ride my bike. I want to play sports too. And I bonded with a lot of the kids there. We were playing basketball outside and things like that. And I remember my mom came to one of the meetings and she was just new to all of this. And she ended up raising her hand in the middle of the meeting. And she was like, oh, how can I help my son? And then the one kid, he was an older kid, and he was like, I've met him, and I think he's going to be okay. I played basketball with him, and he seems to be like a very good kid. So he tried to kind of bring her back down. So anyway, I leave the rehab, and I'm very, on the up and up. So excited. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start a new life. I was pissed at first. Now I'm happy. So on the way home, I found out that not only was my school switched, I was no longer in my school anymore, but also my mother threw away all of my belongings that were very important to me. It was like probably the most traumatic experience of my life. To this day, I wish I still had a lot of those things that were thrown away. So when I went home, out of spite, I just called one of my friends. So I went there and I smoked, just out of spite. I didn't even want to. I just did it because I was pissed. And from there, I got into selling weed. In 12th grade, one of my biggest regrets in life ever, and I have a recurring dream about it actually, that I'm about to start a basketball game and I'm like already have my jersey on, or sometimes I won't have my jersey, I can't find it, but the game never starts. It never starts, and it's like very anxiety-ridden feeling. And so I tried out for the high school basketball team in 12th grade. It was my senior year. I had just come back from that other school that I got switched to. I was brought to the side by my coach, Coach Slaughter. He's known me for years, and he was like, it's okay. He was like, you have a spot on this team. He's like, none of these assistant coaches even know you. And they all came up to me and were like, who is that kid? And he was like, you have a spot on this team, but I want you to take it seriously because I know what, you've been up to and things like that. I really do. I want you to take it serious. I'll get you ready for college basketball if you want. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll do it. Anyway, I didn't do it. I didn't go out for the team. I decided to continue to sell weed, and I didn't do it. Because I continued to sell weed, there was one kid and his dad had cancer, and he had the generic Oxy 80s. So he was trading them for a gram of weed. So I was like, okay, this is a way I could make money. But then I started doing them just for fun. I had no idea. Literally, I'm a smart person, but I didn't know what that could entail. It was me and one of my friends that were kind of working together, and, we would take the sealant off of it or whatever and sniff them. And I was dating a girl at the time, and she had warned me about it. And I always remember that she warned me. She was like, you can't be doing that because, this might happen. And she was like, and if that happens, I can't be around that. But I don't know why I was so blind to it at the time. And I remember writing on a piece of paper the one time, I was in my basement and I was doing it. I was like, I love this. And I put a question mark and I said, too much? Question mark. And then I realized my mistakes because I went to West Virginia. And I started going to the rec center every single day because you could run 5-on-5, 8 a.m. in the morning, 11 p.m. at night. All day you could run 5-on-5. And I got really good. I was dunking. I was playing very well. A couple of people told me to even walk onto the team. So West Virginia ended up becoming too expensive after that first year. So then the next year I came back home and I went to Northampton Community College. I stopped smoking weed. I stopped being stupid, and I literally would like go out to the court and just run suicides. And I got myself into really, really, really good shape. I would go to Northampton Community College and play with the best of the best, the whole team, and I would be dunking and everything and playing really well. The captain of the team actually went up to the coach during tryouts and told the coach about me. And I didn't make the team, and I put a lot of work into that. So then I just took my shoes, I threw them away, and I walked over to my friend's house. He lived close to the community college, and I just sniffed an Oxy 80. So that happened. But it's a big regret of mine.
That's all right, because I think we all have them,
Yep.
you know? And I think a lot of times they'll bring us to where we are today, you know?
Fast forward, I moved on to Philadelphia. I lived in North Philly with some of my friends. Even though I was living on a couch, at one point, I finally found a job. Things were trending in the right direction. However, at some point, eventually I got sick, obviously. Prescription pills for a long time. And that got very expensive. You know, I was going down to Philadelphia, getting 10 pounds of weed, literally, with a guy that's actually in jail for murder right now. We would go down there and get that, and I would make a lot of money off that. Every single dime of that money was spent on those drugs. I didn't make anything. So at one point in time, I figured, you know what? Financially speaking, it would be smarter for me to do heroin because they're only $10 a bag. So I was with this kid. He was working for my dad. We were in my basement. His phone kept ringing. I was like, who is that? And I knew who it was. And I knew what he was going to do because he didn't want me to know that he was doing heroin at the time. And I was just like, answer the phone. I was like, I'll go with you. And he did. And I went. And the first time I ever did heroin, I shot it. It was such a dark feeling to me. I was like, you know, this isn't me. I know that's not me. But then I ended up sniffing it a few times. I got it. And then, you know, maybe my 5th or 6th rehab. Sometimes when you're in rehab, you thrive, right? And I'm doing so well. I was like, you know what? I'm never going to use again. And then I leave. And it's like I come back to the same thing. Every single day in my head, I was like, how do I not get high today? And
Yeah, let's talk about how you said, you know, you feel like you thrived in those types of environments. Do you think it was the structure in there, or you didn't have access to things? Like, what do you think that was?
I think it was my mind getting clear, really, and just my real self coming out in there because it was a safe environment. I'm not really out in the real world at that point in time. But once you get back out to the real world, then like life hits you again. 30 days, it ain't shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not getting clean after 30 days. You know, you got to stay there for a long time, and life is real too. Like some people have kids, they can't stay there for a year. That's where it comes into, in my opinion, where medically assisted recovery it should not have a stigmatism attached to it.
I also think knowing him for as long as I have, I think that structure for him is a huge thing. I think for him, it's just that constant routine. I think routine, I think is a great thing. So every day, waking up, I have this to do, this to do. It made you feel good. You get up, you're doing something, you're thriving. And I think with him and watching him grow through his journey, that is something I think that he does need in his life. A good routine, something that gives him self-worth, purpose, you know, whether it's his family, it's work, it's whatever it is at the time, I think is a huge thing for him in general. And maybe just in rehab that they give you that opportunity to work and to do whatever it is. I think it helps you remember what you're good at and that you can do, you know, you're still a human and you're still wanting to be a good functioning person in society. So it just reminds you of that.
That definitely is me. I actually work commission based. So technically, like I don't I don't really have to do anything unless I want to, which isn't very good for me in a sense. I was having trouble keeping up with what I was doing because I didn't have that structure, and she did because she's organized to a T. That's like where she balances me out.
What I'd like to hear about is
Mhm.
so after the 11th rehab,
Yes.
when did things start to get better for you?
I actually had a friend that was a counselor at a methadone clinic. She kept telling me, just go on methadone, John. She's like, I see so many people that are doing well. And she knew me from my wholesome years, you know? She knew me from when I was in high school thriving, playing sports, things like that. She's like, John, just do it. And I was just like, no. Like, I didn't, like, that's just, you know, switching it out for something else. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try rehab one more time. And I went to North Carolina. I stayed there for 2 months, came home, and it lasted like 3 weeks, and I used it again. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go on methadone. I finally just did it. It literally saved my life. Like, because you don't have to think about not getting high all day. You can think about the things that you actually need to focus on. And methadone allowed me to just be who I was, get a job, be productive, and move forward. And then, you know, eventually once I feel comfortable enough, taper down. I worked for my boss. He's a millionaire now. And he's actually still on methadone. There's a lot of success stories. I mean, I'm almost off of it, and I will be very soon. You know, my story is my truth. I'm not going to lie to anybody. I'm not going to say, you know, I'm completely clean. No, I'm still on methadone. I will have a beer occasionally at lunch, but I have not touched a hard drug since June 6th, 7 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. People don't need to have that stigmatism on medically assisted recovery. You know, it's good that recognition is coming to that, because a lot of my friends probably would still be alive because I would try to tell them, like, why don't you just do this because it's working for me? Please just do it. And then now they're dead, you know?
Right.
They're dead, literally, like, gone.
Let's talk about a little bit about, you know, what your life looked like today with that, you know, that pathway of recovery that you've chosen. It seems like your life's coming together because I think you said when you first came in, you guys just got married. Is that correct?
Actually, I've been with Steph for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So she's 9 years clean from hard drugs. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't drink or smoke or anything like that. So I'm 7 years. So that means there's 3 years where we, you know, so we've been through a lot. There's a lot there. And we did just finally tie the knot. We went to the courthouse. We're simple people.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to spend money on a huge wedding. You know, she did make me get her a nice ring. So I did that. But we have 2 beautiful sons that I coach. I'm the head coach of one of their basketball teams, and I'm the assistant coach of another one. I coach their baseball teams too. I enjoy coaching the youth because I don't want them to make the same mistakes that I did.
I think too that I have to say that, so watching him for 12, you know, almost 13 years now, watching him struggle, and when he finally stuck with the methadone and that worked for him, it was almost like you watched his brain just, it clicked for him. It finally clicked. So watching him start to, the light almost come back into his face, and, you know, the weight gain and just the smiling. And then I did get pregnant with our first son. So watching him be a dad, him being able to concentrate on something else besides, I can't do this. You know, the drugs and every day waking up and feeling like you need to use, that gave him that foundation to then build off of. I just feel like each day he grows more and more to me in my eyes. And it's amazing to watch, because when I first saw him for the very first time, we had gone to high school together. And I was like, oh my goodness, like you could just see right through him. It just, you know, and now watching him grow, it's beautiful. Like his whole story, you know, watching him, because he was such a great athlete, and now he can instill all the great knowledge into our sons. So watching him out on that court or on the baseball field, it reminds you there's more to me than, you know, all the bad things that I've done and all of those things. Like, it's never too late. You know, it's never too late for him to share, and hopefully it just touches one person.
It's never too late for anybody.
Yeah. I think that trying something, give yourself a break and let yourself breathe and try what works for you, you know, and that's what he did. He gave it a shot, and it's really beautiful to watch.
And the methadone didn't even work for me at first because I wasn't patient. But then once I became patient with it, that's when it started working.
Yes.
So you have to be patient with it too. If you choose to go that route.
It seems like that's one of the things that we lack a lot of times is patience, right? Because we're so used to that instant gratification
Yep.
of feeling better and experiencing life how we think we are supposed to. It sounds like you're giving back now to the youth, which I
Yep.
think is really important. That I think for a lot of us, we need some level of service, right? So it sounds like we're good with structure and regimen and giving back, you know?
That's the
So,
name of the game.
You can see the passion
right.
when he coaches our sons and all the kids. The passion is there, and just the patience that he didn't have, that he's now given himself, and and trying to instill that into the kids now, because I just think it's so important as all the kids are growing up in the world today.
That's great, and I think we all need a mentor, right? And it sounds like you got a lot of good life experience. A lot of times people, stigma, right? They look at us moral deficiency or bad people and we don't deserve to be forgiven or moved past. And but you're evidence that what we have done or what we have experienced does not define who we are for the rest of our lives. That here's a guy who was down in North Philly, doing his thing and now is helping kids, running a business, has found recovery and isn't dope sick and doing all the things that takes us to those places. I like to say a lot of times without our permission, because you talked about the fact that you didn't really understand what you were doing in the beginning. And I know a lot of people share that feeling. And I think you touched on a lot of good things throughout this that, when you first started using, especially you said the first time you injected heroin, you could tell that this wasn't you. And see, I think what happens to a lot of us is we don't listen to that. Because I've experienced it and a lot of other people have experienced it. And, whatever you want to call it, a disease, something in the brain, we all have those similar experiences. And that was one of the big things why we wanted to do this, is to show people it doesn't matter where you come from or what you experience. We can all find our own recovery. Everyone deserves a chance to find their way home. And I'm glad you were very honest and thorough with everything you talked about, because I think that's important, because people say the truth will set you free.
Absolutely.
And we wanted to do this, and even if it does just reach one person, maybe give them some hope, that's why we wanted to do it.
A lot of people, they give up. But you don't have to give up. You can keep going and trying. Keep figuring out your path. Don't give up on that. Because that's one thing that was good about me. Is like, I knew that wasn't me. And a lot of people know that's not them, but they lose hope in themselves. And then they just don't ever try again. Keep trying, because you'll figure it out. You can. It might take a long time. Like, there's a lot of successful people you don't even know about. Because I know a lot of people that, they just didn't give up, but their lives really didn't even start till they're 40 years old. And now they're just beautifully happy. Their whole entire 20s and 30s were chaos. And now, like, they're in their 40s living life. So it's not too late to do that shit. Stay positive and don't give up, because I get it. Trust me, I do. And you could be at a very low spot. And right now, the drug game is a lot harder to overcome. I'll give you that. But it doesn't matter, because you have it within you. You do. You can do it. If I could do it, I promise you can. Don't give up, because when you're gone, you're gone. And like, I miss a couple of my friends like really bad. You're loved.
Thank you for coming out, John, and sharing your story with us. Just know you change your lives.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a very fulfilling experience for me. Something I've been waiting to do for a long time. But again, thanks for having us. Appreciate it very much.
And in fact, your wife will be joining us for the next episode. So we'll be hearing from both of you again soon.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to thank all of you for listening, and remember to always keep up the good fight.